Next, we'll come to the forms. What is the form? We have seen that generally when you open any website, you open the Google form, might we have seen that, or you are filling some sign up form, right? You usually log into the Gmail, right? Or registering to the Gmail, Facebook, even you have filled the examination form in your VTU portal, right? So what is that? That is actually it is called as forms. In the forms only, you have to define all the input, like either you sign in, sign up, submit, what kind of data you are going to collect from the users, that will be defined under the category of forms. So we have to use the form element in the HTML. This form, if you take a look, so form provides the user with an alternative way to interact with web server. See, the main thing is here. It is going to interact with web server. So far, what we were learning, that is not going to interact with server, anything. Even now, what we are going to learn, we'll see further how you can submit the data into the PHP, right? So then only that means you whatever you are filling, your name, okay, your email ID, phone number, that need to be stored in the server. So that is actually web server, and that we'll see into the PHP when we are going to learn. So as of now, we just learned that how to create the forms. Okay. So up to now, just we were learning about clicking the hyperlinks, and this is only mechanism to communicate the server. That means you have a about us button, you have contact us button. When you click, it will take to the particular page. So only that way we used to do the hyperlinks on the website. But what happened here when you use forms? So forms will provide a much richer mechanism. Why? Because you are going to interact with the web server. Your data is going to submit and it will be safe into the server side. Whenever you are going to ask any data, that means whatever you have filled, you will be able to see that. This form will provide what are the mechanism as I mentioned. Mechanism is like you are going to give the text input, you'll be using as a password input, option list, radio box, you are going to use again for checkbox, radio box, selection box. There are a lot of things are there. It's totally depend on you. You know what are the things you want in the form. Even you want text area to write the address, even that you can define. That is actually your form input. So this how you are going to define the form. So let's proceed. How the form structure will be there. When we talk about the form, definitely the structure will be there. So the form is constructed in HTML the same manner we were creating tables or list, how we use the table list. But here you will be having some special HTML elements in the form, but usually it will be the same. When you want to define the form in HTML, you are going to use the tag that is the form, that is the form elements. And this form element is like a container element. That means it is going to keep something. That means like input box, checkbox, selection box, right? Everything will be contained in that. That's why it is called as container tag also. Which container for the other elements, and that will present various like input element with the forms, plain text, and other HTML elements, whatever required in our HTML program. Okay. So like this way, we are going to create the form. This is the basic. You can see the example here, or let's open any other thing. Okay, I'll open the same portal, EU Academy. Okay, you have seen that when you are going to register, right? Registration process. So when you click on like login, you have login. Okay, let me log out first. Okay, so okay, I have logged out, right? So the moment you logged out, and then you will be able to see that you'll be having login. So what login is there? Login with email. So when you click on login with email, that is nothing actually, it is the form only here. So how you can see that? Just right click and inspect. When you click on inspect, you will be able to see there, definitely there will be the form. Okay. Okay, I have used here as a, actually it is in Angular. Okay, so anything, whenever you see that, even if I open Facebook, okay, so if you open the Facebook, right click, inspect, because might be they will define the form or they use different techniques like the division tag. See here, you can see on the Facebook page, form class is equal to, they're defining some class data. Okay, and where your data is going to be submit, you can see here, right? You can see there your data is going to submit into the action login slash privacy mutation token. Now in encrypted format, the data will be submitted to this location. So that means it is which location, whatever the form page will be there, this will be in encrypted format and it will get submitted. Then you are able to see that the login. This how actually any login system works. So same way here, the form structure, whenever you are going to define the form, you have to use the tag as a form. Then you are going to write the another attribute, that is the method. So generally we use two types of method here. One is we use get method, okay, and another one you use post method. Two method generally we use. We'll see that also, what is the difference between get and post, okay, and action. Why you are going to use action? Because somewhere your data need to be submit, right? So that's why that page will be their action page. That means where you are going to submit. And you can define, because you are going to interact with server, then definitely it will be the PHP script, or even you can write as we have just now seen on the Facebook, it is in encrypted format. You can define the same way. Okay. Then you can field set, then you can use, this is the field set, okay, we have used here. Okay, then we are using listen, then details, okay, then another paragraph I'm using in that label. So whenever you want to define the title like this, okay, the separate title, then you are going to use label. And when you want a text field, then you are going to define as a input type. You can see that I'm using input type. What type it is? Text. Some name you have to define. Even you have to define later stage some ID when you are going to interact with the server. Okay, name and ID should also be defined. Same way, another paragraph I want as a selection box, right? Then that means multiple choice. I'm giving label as a country. That is the label as a country. Then what I want, selection box. So when you want the selection box, another element is there called select, and name. Name is equal to where. Okay. The moment you give where, that means it will show the location. And what option you are going to give? I'm going to use here different option, like choose a country, whatever the country name. You have seen that generally for different states, right? Like Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, whatever you want, you can define, and then you will be able to see the states, right? And same way, at last, there will be a submit button. So what will happen with the submit button? The moment you hit on the button, where it is going to submit, obviously the moment you hit submit, this will go to the process.php and it will get submitted. And you will see, so next what they will do in this process.php, they will write the server side code. Okay, and the moment it gets submitted, you will get the message, thank you for your submission, or we will, our team will revert back, something like this. So that how only this the form structure works. This is a very basic example. And as I mentioned that how the form will interact with the server, it's very simple. The users is there, right? The user will fill the form, right? So you will be seeing this data. What you will do, you will request to the server, okay? So this form will appear to you, okay? And you are going to fill. The moment you fill and submit, so that is you are giving request. Now it will go to the PHP application. So this is server. In server side, what you are doing? You are writing some script, right? That means it is going to be stored as a form of in database, or you are going to accept into the Excel sheet. It's totally depend on you. Okay. So this request is usually for some types of server scripting, and that will process your data. Okay. And the moment data is submitted, and when you are going to, when you want the data to be called, right? So again, you give the request, data will appear. Otherwise, it's not. Okay. So this is general process. You give the request, server will fetch the data. Okay. That means first it will display. So what data you want, it has displayed. Okay. Then you are going to fill the form. So you are filling the form and you are submitting this. So third step, again in the PHP, if you have the code, like where the user can see that what data has submitted, that also can be displayed here. So what you have to do, again in the PHP, and again there will be a display here. So there will be the 6 steps, that display will come, that your title, that means your title, country, which your country have selected. Like this way, we generally design the HTML form, and this way it will interact with the servers. Now, when we talk about the query string, we should know this thing before proceeding with the form creation. Okay. What is the query strings? That means what information you are going to send to the server. If you take a look on the Facebook, okay, I'll go to network as I mentioned right earlier. Now you can see that I'll just refresh this page. You will see here some result will happen. Okay, it will open some site. Okay, let's see that. Now you can see that, right? So when the moment you open the Facebook page, what happened? This many scripts are getting open in your, see the Facebook 200. Okay, this is the document, that is HTML or PHP document. Then another style sheet, it is there. You can see the structure. Style sheets are there. Then you have some script. See, this is the script they are using. They're using a different kind of a script in the home page. The different kind of, you can see there all the script. So the moment you hit here, you can see here one more thing I'll show you. I'll write test dot. I'll write my email ID only. Okay, and I'll give the password XYZ 1 2 3 4 5. Actually, it is wrong password. Don't try. Okay, it will not work. So now what I'll do, I'll click on the login. Now you see the again what result will happen. I'll click on login. Have you seen that? This is actually your query string. That means the moment users is submitting the information, I have hit on login. After login, what happened? You have seen right in the form I have shown you just now, the form submission where it will go. So it will go to the privacy mutation token, some encrypted format. It will go there and it will check. So this is successful. It went. But what data you are submitting, that query need to be passed. So how it is going to be passed? You can see there, this is your encrypted data that is going to be passed to the Facebook server. And when it match to the Facebook database, then only this will get open. So that is the your query string you are passing into the URL. So in URL you have to pass the query string. So either you want in encrypted format or you want decrypt normal format. It's totally depend on the users. So generally any application, even banking application, if you see that, if you do the net banking, even there you will just observe this URL. That is actually your query string. You will get to know that, okay, this is a in encrypted format, it is getting passed. So that is actually called as your query strings. What query the user is going to pass through the browser. So that's what the browser packages the user data input into something called as query string. So in the browser URL, what you are going to pass, that is your user data as an input, that is called as actually query string. And this query string is a series of name is equal to value. You have seen that, right? You are giving some name, right? Something you are giving is equal to some value you are giving, right? The path, this is the path where it is, but what is that? Name and value. What name is there? Privacy mutation token, and it is encrypted format, some value is there. The names in query string were defined in by HTML forms. So whatever the name you are defining, that is by HTML form. That is the form name you can define, like I am defining to understand this one. Okay, and the query string have certain rules defined by HTTP protocol. So definitely there will be certain rules, because if you open that, if you not keep the encrypted format, what happen in the browser cache, the data will be available and attackers can attack on your system, and they can, or even any of your friend, if they want to take revenge from you, they know that, okay, you are using Facebook on system, okay, I'll go and take the password. So anyone can see that, right? That's how it is there. So that's why they encode the URL and then they pass to the server. So certain characters such as space, punctuation symbols, okay, foreign character cannot be part of the query string. Obviously, you cannot give the space. You cannot give the space between this, like a space, it will not take, right? If you give this, it will not take any special, like punctuation symbols, that also will not work. Some foreign characters, even that, those things are not work. So it has certain rules, it has to be followed. Okay, so same way you are going to carry this one. So this is the things into the query string. And whatever you are going to, so instead of that, you are going to use some symbols and it should be encoded. Okay, so now what we'll do here, you can see here the example, right? How the URL going to be encoded. I'm using input type text and you are giving the name, as I said, right? Always you are going to define some name. Okay, so here it is defined. Okay, now even when you are using select tag, that is element, even you are giving name is equal to where. Okay, some names everywhere you're defining. When you pass this to the URL, even if you're going to be submit, what will happen on the URL, you'll be able to see that the title is equal to whatever the title you are submitting. I have filled like central part, so central, I've given the space between the central space park. So when it is going to submit in URL, it will take plus, right? Then park and where is equal to United States. Even you can see in different way the result. Let's open Google. Okay, now I am going to search like web technology. Okay, now I'll hit enter. Now you see there in the query string, see search is equal to, you can see here, right? The search is equal to, I have given web space technology. So web plus and technology. Now sources, what is the source? That is we are using HP lab. That is the whatever that source will be there. Some numbers, some encrypted format. So it is going to cache the entire information of your system from which IP address, which MAC address the particular search is happening. This entire things will be taken by the Google. So that's what it is there. So query string will be submitted like this. Okay. And the moment you hit submit button, as I said, right? So like this way. If you use encoding formats, so what happen? It will, as you can see that, right? So notice how the space, if you are giving the space, obviously a space will be used. So here only one is there. So space plus the plus. If you are using any character, then it will convert into the special character, that is the HTTP protocol, and then it will encode and then it will be submit. I have used here, you can see here, I have used here different format, okay, different symbol. So that will get encoded, okay, and this complete line will get encoded. This is actually your URL encoding. Now, what are the form elements we have? The most important thing when you do the URL encoding or when you want to submit the form, that is the essential that you are going to use action element, right? It is very important. That means action and method is very, very important. Without that, your data is not going to, without action, your data will not submitted. And with method, your URL encode and decode will be the problem. If you not give, so that also by default it will take, but you have to hide that. So hide and display, those two comes into the using the get and post method. Okay. So the first is action attribute. It will specify the URL of the server side. That means it will define the URL which is going to be hit into the server side, and it will process your data. Whatever I have filled the form, that will process to the server and it will give you the result. So which data you are going to submit, where you are going to submit, how it will define? Definitely it will define by the action button, right? Next, you have method. What is the method attribute? The moment you use method attribute, now it is going to specify that the how your query string data will be there. You want to transmit data from the browser to server, so it should be visible into the URL or it should be hidden. So there is a two techniques, that is the get and post. In get it will be visible, post it will be not visible. Okay, and the action attribute, okay, as we mentioned, okay, same thing it is written here. Okay, and this, as I said, the same thing. Okay, I have repeated here. Okay, so you have to use get and post. It is compulsory, you should use, then only you'll be exact data whatever you want to see the what I am submitting. For the practice you can use the simple like get. If you don't, if you want to hide, then you are going to use post. It's not like that get means okay, it will be not display, it will not get submitted. So generally, as we mentioned, the form data sent using post method, okay, and get method usually when you are testing or developing a system, okay, since you are examine the query string directly into the browser address bar, okay. So what will happen? What is the mean that when you are going to use form data to send, we have to use post. But when you are testing on your system, a developer, right? When the developer is going to use, then definitely it will be in the get method, because you will see that, okay, what error, if anything problem is happening, then you can check that. Okay, so that is actually your get method. So every time whenever you want to test, you can use this on your machine. Okay, not on the real time. That is the best way. Since the get method uses the URL to transmit the query string, as I said, right? And the form data will be saved when the user bookmark the page. What it mean that? That means when you are submitting, hitting the submit button, and generally we have that, okay, I want to, next time I don't want to go to Google every time, and want to use this to be just type. I'll just use bookmark, I'll just select, it will get open. Okay, so how you are going to use that is, you have to use and you have to define. Okay, so that's why if you bookmark the page, what will happen, you will be able to see the next moment when you open this, it will be visible to the user. Anyone who open, they will be able to see your data. So that's why this is the security risk, and your data can be leaked. That information can be leaked. So even the attackers will attack on your browser. They will send some malware. You will open that. They will be able to read your browser and information, that is cookies, and they will catch the data and they can. That's why generally the sometimes people say that my email ID was hacked, my Facebook is hacked. How come? Because and until you are not going to do the mistake, it will not happen, right? So that how it is there, and it will happen like this only. Okay, so this you have to think when you are going to develop any piece. As I mentioned, action. So action will specify the URL, that is where you are going to submit the data. Method, it will specify that you are going to use HTTP method of get and post. When you define the name, it will denote the name of the form. And when you use, sorry, when you use target, that means the target address in the action attribute that you have to define. Okay, like this way, this will, your form will work. So you can see here, we'll see in the practice also. So here when you use form method, you can see here I'm using like get. Okay, so I've used here method is equal to get. Okay, and action. When you perform the action, so what happened in the HTTP protocol, it will show get process, whatever the title you are going to submit, it will, everything is visible. Okay, the moment you use post method, so what happened in the server side, it will take like the same what form you have used, the date, the host name, user agent, that means which browser you are using, content length, and it will submit to the server side. Okay, so this is the your query string, the difference between get and post. This way you can use. Then when you talk about what is the advantage when I use get, what is the disadvantage? So a little bit you can see the few difference here. When you use the get, the data can be clearly seen the address bar, and it is also a disadvantage. Advantage also is there when you are developing the portal. So I'm not able to find out where my data is going to submit. So definitely that time you have to use get only to find out. But when you are going to the live production server, you should not use. That is one thing. Second advantage, data remains in the browser history and cache. Whatever you are going to use, it is there available into the browser history. And data can be bookmarked. Okay. The limit on the number of characters in the form data will be returned. So you can be able to see that easily. Okay. Then when you talk about the post, data will contain binary data. Okay. And it is hidden from the users. and the submitted data will not store into the cache, history, or bookmark. This is the, and you go and see that any website, wherever you have even Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whichever website you open, definitely there will be the post method. Very few they will use get method. So like that way, and you have to be very safe when you are browsing. You have to see that the technology is getting increased. Obviously, the security also matter a lot. And these are the form control elements. So this form control element you have to use, okay, and you have to use like button. If you want button, then you can use button also. When you want data list, that means in HTML5 actually it is defined, okay, and when you want some data list you can define. When you want to define field set, that means if you want to group related element in the form together. So whenever you are defining all the elements and you want all the element to be grouped together, then you have to define with the field set, okay. Then as usual form, we know that input for the input text box, okay, and when you are going to use label, that is just defining the name, the legend, that is the defining the label for the field set group, option when you want multi list item, okay, opt group, that means when the group of related option and you are going to select multiple option, then in that way, then you want to use selection box, you want to use text area, that means you want to fill the address, then you can use here, okay. So this how you can use the several different kind of form control in your web programming. And what are the text input control? Because when you want text, like I'm defining input type as a text, so the first one you have text, so normally the text only one line single line entry will be there. When you want multiple line, as I said, address, so that comes into the text area when you want to create multiple lines, and you have to define the text area, rows is equal to 3, so 3 rows will be there, and 3 rows, 4 rows, that means that's why it is multiple span will be there, and this way you can use. When you are defining password, sorry, when you are defining the password, when you give anything input the input box, it's similar to the input box, but what happen, and also it will be a single line only. So when you are entering that and you define the password, what will happen, it will be easily, you'll be able to get to know that, okay, the it will be like a star dot dot dot, you have seen that, right? It will be not visible. And search, if you want any search box to be displayed, then you have to use input type is equal to search. So whatever the query string you are going to pass, it depend on the query string, and this you can use, and this is actually your HTML5 element, the search. The same way you have email. If you want to accept the email ID into the input, then you are going to use input type is equal to email. Again, it is the single line text entry, okay, and this is also one of the HTML5 element. And some device like iPhone will provide specialized keyboard for this element, okay, and when you are going to fill, obviously it will take only @ email ID. If you not give the @ email ID, it will not take, like this way. Next, if you want a telephone number, mobile number, then you can use this also. This is also HTML5 element, okay, and same way type is equal to telephone. So the telephone number have the different format. Again, you have to define the different JavaScript how you are going to accept the phone number, like +91, then four numbers, then again 6 number, or you want first 3 number, then 4 number. How you want that, again you have to define. It's totally depend on the developer. Then URL, that means if you are going to accept any URL, so this is also a single line entry text box. Okay, and this is also one of the HTML5 element, and this, with the moment you submit, the URL will be submitted to the form, whatever this comes into the text input control. You can see here, when I'm giving input type text, the text box will be there. When you are giving text area, so you can see here you have the some number of rows is will get increased. Same way you can define the text area. If you give the password, input type password, the moment you enter the password, it will come star star star, right? When you give the email ID, okay, so email ID, if you give only some name in Opera browser, it will show you like this way. When you use Google Chrome, it will say that please enter a email address. The same way URL if you give, and if you are writing something, it will tell that please enter the URL. This is the difference between all the text input control.